for an art lesson. I'm going to show you first how I've set up my space and the supplies that you need, and then you'll have time to gather your supplies. Right, for our lesson today, you are going to need your journal. You're going to need pencil, sharpener, eraser, Sharpie marker, your set of markers, your watercolor paints, and then from home you'll need to get some paper towels, you'll need a cup of rinse water, cover your area, and then you will need paint brushes. Gather your supplies and then we'll be ready to go. So for today's lesson, we're going to be drawing a very colorful chameleon. So if you're ready to go, let's get started. I have my first page open of my sketchbook, and now we're going to start with our chameleon. You are going to start with your pencil and you are going to draw a line across the middle of the page. That line should be very, very light because we want to be able to erase it later. So hopefully you can see my line. Once you have that line, we are going to start on our chameleon. The first thing we need to do for our chameleon is give him a head. So you're going to come over here. You're going to make a curved line for his head. I'm sketching upwards and then a straight line down right there. That is the first part of my chameleon. Next, I am going to take and make a curved line for his body. This line is going to be more of an arch and it's going to come all the way down to that first line. So that is the basic body of my chameleon. Chameleons and all other lizards have really fabulous tails. And so my chameleon's tail is going to come down, 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 then back up, and I'm going to sketch it into a curly Q. Once I get to this point, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to make it thick. So I'm going to take and I'm going to sketch all the way around until I have a nice curly tail. Now I've gone back over mine with a pencil so you can see just a little bit better how my tail curves down and how I have the head and the body. The next thing I want to do is I want to put an eyeball on the head. So I'm just going to draw a little circle here and I am going to put a little bitty eye inside of there. Later I will color that with a marker or with Sharpie. Next thing I need to do is my tongue. Since I have this cute spiral down here, I also am going to do a cute spiral for my tongue, but I am not going to thicken it. I'm going to leave it just like it is. Now, our chameleon has to be sitting somewhere. He can't just be hanging in the middle of the air. So I'm going to start back here and I'm going to sketch 2 lines and I am going to make those go underneath my chameleon like so. I'm going to leave a little space because he's going to have feet. And I am going to make that a tree branch. So he is hanging out in the trees. Once I have my tree branch, I'm going to put some feet on him. So those are on top of the branch. So go ahead and get your little chameleon feet drawn. If you need to pause the video at any time, go ahead and pause the video. Now, what I want to do next is I want to add some details to my tree. So I'm going to go a little heavier just so you can see it. But when I get down here, this is where my branch or limb is going to branch off. So I am going to draw a parallel line here. I'm going to come, let's see, I think I will go like this, make a little short V, and then I'm going to branch off again. And so if I do it like that, you can see that I have something that looks a little bit more like a tree branch. I can also come over here and I can add another little branch upon which I'm going to add some leaves. Now, if you want to, you can take a look and find out some information about chameleons. I know that lizards like to live in the desert. I know that they also like to live in the rainforest. There are probably other places lizards like to hide. And so for a chameleon, I don't actually know specifically where they live, but I do know that they change colors to match their environment. And in this case, since our guy is going to be hanging out in a tree, we're going to think of it like a rainforest. And so a rainforest, the cover has lots and lots and lots of places for chameleons to hide. So if you want to add multiple leaves you can go ahead and you can fill in your paper with many different leaves. I'm going to let you take some time to do that, and then I'll be back with my addition of leaves. All right, I've added another branch down here. I've added some leaves, and then on my next step, I'm gonna add a sun. But before I do, while I pause to let you all draw on your leaves and fill in some of the blank spaces, I did look up chameleons. And it just so happens that there are 89 different species of chameleons who live mainly in Madagascar and Africa. And you might remember Madagascar because of the movie. And so chameleons would have lived in the area that they traveled in the very first movie. Africa, south of the Sahara. The Sahara is a desert. The next thing I did was I clicked on some of the pictures of chameleons, and one of the things that I noticed is that chameleons have really, really awesome eyes. And so I'm gonna do a little bit of close-up on my computer. Look at those eyes. They're kind of bulgy. Look at that. And sometimes they also have spikes on their chest. So if you want to look up a chameleon and you want to work on your eyes to add some more details, go for it. The next thing I'm going to do, though, is way up here in my corner, I'm going to add a sunshine, because my chameleon is living in a sunny day. Just gonna do a round circle, and then I like to do sometimes my sun rays with little V's like this, especially when I know I'm gonna paint them. If I feel like there's too much space up here, whereas I have a lot of leaves down there, I can do some things, like I can add more leaves going up, or I can do some clouds or anything that I want to do to fill in that space. It's also fine to leave that space because the main attraction or the centerpiece of our artwork is our chameleon. Now, we are now going to stop with the drawing. Once you feel like you have it completed, you are going to grab your Sharpie. I am now going to use the Sharpie, and I'm going to use my best hand to very carefully, I meant like steadiest hand, I am going to outline every single thing that I want to keep in the Sharpie. So I'm going to pause the video and let you guys for a little bit go ahead and trace your artwork. Okay, I've outlined my entire chameleon and the leaves and the branches and the sun with Sharpie, and I also want you to notice that I put a little dragonfly up here. So while we were all doing our outlining, I also decided that I would just check and see what chameleons eat. And it says that chameleons, and by it I mean the internet or the Googler, I did Google it, says that they eat insects. So I added a little dragonfly up here because I think that this dragonfly is just a little bit too far away for that chameleon to grab onto it. And so I thought I would like to have that in there. Now, once I am done outlining everything, this is where we grab our big pink eraser. You are going to go back and you are going to erase all of your pencil lines. And so you want to have a nice, clean, erased, just Sharpie showing piece of paper. Be very careful that you don't tear your paper. You'll notice it's pretty thick, so you shouldn't tear it, but do not just, go at it real good. These pencils have an eraser on the back. They will wear out very soon, and I do find that an eraser like this leaves a lot fewer marks. So I'm gonna turn it back around so I can see your faces. Just kidding, we're not on Zoom. And I'm gonna pause it again, and I am going to go back to mine, and I'm gonna erase everything. So while I'm doing that, and while you're doing that, I'd love it if you could figure out what kind of insects chameleons actually eat. I don't know if it's really dragonflies. If you wanna send me a text, you can text me at 479-619-6085. I'd love to see your art as you're drawing it since we can't be together, but I'd also like to know something interesting about chameleons. Okay, now I'm going to show you two things. The art journal that you have that I've sent home in your kit is a mixed media one, which means that the paper is thick enough that you can use watercolors on it. I asked you to get out your watercolor palette. If you're going to use watercolors, you need to have your water cup close by, and you need to make sure your brush is really wet. So I dip my brush in the water, and then I come right, let's see if I can move this, down here, and I just mix in a bunch of water. I get more water and then I do that again. Sometimes I'll even get like little drip drops I actually have little, I don't know what they're called. They're like little science things where you drip stuff out of it. Anyway, so you can get in there and you can really get your water wet. The other thing is this lid right here, that is for mixing colors. So let's say that I have this green and I put a little bit right here on the lid. Got it nice and wet, so I'm getting it on the lid. Now I'm gonna take the yellow. Notice that I did, you probably heard me and didn't see me, but I did take my brush, dipped it in the water and rinsed it because I don't wanna get green in my yellow. Now, got plenty of yellow nice and wet. Now I can mix right there and I can make a different shade of green. So I can change my colors by mixing them. One of the things, I'm gonna wipe this up so it doesn't drip, that you need to know though is that not all colors mix equally. You probably remember that, you've probably learned it. So when I look at my colors, I have the exact same one that you do. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. On the outer edges, you have black. Over here you have brown. White is a difficult color. They don't usually put it in watercolors. If you want to make something lighter, you add water to it. That's just how it's done in watercolor, okay? So now that I have this out for you, what you want to think of is your red, your orange, and your yellow. Those are your warm colors. These three can be mixed. Say you want a pink. Pink is simply made by adding lots of water to your red. So red with lots of water becomes a pink, alrighty? Same thing with gray. Black with lots of water is going to become gray. The art word for it is called changing the value. You can change the value of colors, making them lighter or darker. In watercolors, more water makes it a lighter value. More paint, you have a darker value, okay? So red, orange, yellow. All of these can be mixed. So I can make a little place here and I can mix those. I can mix blue, green, and yellow, even though these are my warm colors and these are my cool colors. So yellow plus blue makes the color green. So they are neighbors on the color wheel and they can be mixed. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. Down here you have purple. The two colors that make purple are blue and red. So if I want to make purple, I can mix these two. That also means if I want to change my purple to a different kind of purple, I can add blue or I can add red. It's fun to experiment, all right? And you can use your journal for that. You can go, I went to the back of mine just to do a sample, and you can do the exact same thing. So with the watercolors then, blue and red make purple. But if you were to put orange, yellow, or green in your purple, you're not gonna have a good result. Also, it goes the same for if I were to put red and green. They're actually opposites. We're not doing the color wheel today, but red and green being opposites means that they're gonna turn brown if I mix them. Yellow and blue make green, so I can mix them. Purple and blue and red make purple, so I can mix them, and so on. All right, so now you have a mini lesson. All right, I'm gonna set those to the side and we're gonna talk about the markers. The thing about the markers that I got you, and this is why I wanted to do markers in the take-home kit and not just use just anything, these not only are scented, so you can give it a good sniff, they also are called watercolor markers. Now, watercolor markers can get very expensive, so this is just a kid's version, but what it means is I can come down here on my art journal and I can do like, I'll just do a little scribble like that. Now I'm gonna take yellow. You know, these don't smell as strong as I would hope. It says they're scented, but I'm a little disappointed. You might notice that my color changed. Oopsie. So let's get that there. I'll do that again. I still have a little bit of green on my yellow, so as I work it, I can get that green off, and I'm going lighter and lighter and lighter. So if I use a dark green and I want to make like a lime green, I can mix the colors. The other thing that you can do is, because they are watercolor, for one thing, one on top of the other will mix it, but you can also grab a paintbrush and you can swirl them together. So when I swirl them together, there's a little bit left on my paper and I can blend that in. So you just don't really want to scribble scrabble too much, but it is fun to figure out how those watercolor markers say. So I would pause before we start painting. I would just pull up a blank page, maybe at the back of your journal, and just practice with the watercolor markers and with the watercolors, because that's part of the fun of getting ready to paint. And we'll be back after you've had some time to play, and we're going to start on coloring our chameleons. Hopefully you had some time to practice. I do want to note that when you are painting, to keep from damaging the other pages, mine's propped up just for the visual, but definitely fold the paper out like this so that you don't get the other pages wet. I also wouldn't necessarily prop it up in the air because you don't want to end up with your paint running. So what I'm going to do is a combination of what I just showed you. I'm going to get my brush. You can pick which kind of brush you want. I'm getting it in the blue. I'm gonna get the blue really, really, really watery, and I'm gonna use that paint tray out here to continue adding water to it because I just want a light blue. Kind of making a mess, but it'll be all right. And then I wanna take, look at that, that's really a pretty color. And I wanna paint my sky. So in some places, like right here, it's just the Sharpie, and so I can go over it. But I want to try to be a little bit careful about going around things, so taking a little bit of my time. However, with doing the sky first, if I choose to do the markers, then when I go to paint, see, I got a little bit of that on there. I don't have to worry quite so much about getting the sky on. That's why I like to do the background first. So if I get the sky on and I get it a little bit on my guy, I can always go over that later with the marker. Okay, so what I am going to actually paint, I'm going to paint the sky and I'm going to paint the tree trunk brown. The rest of it, I'm going to use my markers on. So I'm going to set my watercolors aside and I am going to grab, I like this light green, and I'm going to take that light green. I like to just color. I probably won't use any water with this, but I'm going to do his whole head green. I've seen lots of chameleons, all different colors, but one that I was looking at was a really fabulous color of green. So I'm having to go a little bit fast because you guys are watching me, but you guys take your time, fill that in. I'll come back to that and finish it in a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make mine a rainbow chameleon. And so what I want to do is I'm going to grab red, orange, yellow. I'll use the same green versus the dark one. I'm going to use the lighter blue because I like that, and then purple, and I am going to rainbow stripe my back. I'm going to do that right now. You guys go ahead and do your sky, fill that all in. You can go ahead and do your branch if you want to, or you can wait, and then grab the markers and start designing your chameleon. This green marker, and remember how I said I didn't think they all smelled very good or smelled at all? That green smells really, really good. Now, it's not a good idea to sniff markers, but they're scented, so how can you help it? All right, I'm finished coloring my chameleon and I finished my sky, and I wanted to show you something. I told you I had paper towels nearby. They are for drying my brushes, but also if you look at your artwork and you see places, like I've got one right here, where too much water is puddling, you can gently dab at it. You're gonna have variations of your color with watercolors. That's what makes them fun and unique. But if you have places where it is just sitting in a puddle, you can go ahead and you can just tap it like that with a tiny piece of torn off paper towel. You can also see, although he is upside down, that I got my rainbow stripes on and I went all the way around. Now, clearly, unless there's a giant rainbow in the sky, he's not typically going to be rainbow. I mean, maybe you can find something very colorful and similar, but for me, it's just fun in using my imagination, and so I wanted a rainbow guy. You can do your coloring any way you want to do it. So I am now going to paint my tree branch, and then I am going to do my sun, my dragonfly, and all of my leaves. Okay, so you can continue on. I did forget to say before I move on, I want to make sure the wet spots on the blue are dry before I start on any more watercolor, because if I don't, it's going to make my colors blend, and not in a good way, because brown is really not friends with very many people, but it's a nice color for a tree. I have finished my artwork and I'm going to show it to you. And so completed, it looks like this. You can do your chameleon any way you want. I decided to color my leaves, half green, and then I did the mixing of the yellow and green to make a more limey green for the other half of the leaves. Little purple guy, I used the watercolor marker to make light purple on the inside with dark purple on the outside, and then put a little swirl on my sun. So don't forget to send me a picture of your artwork. And then also you want to clean up your supplies. A good artist takes care of their supplies. So what that means for markers is lids are on tight and the right cap is on. Store them upside down. If you store them upside down, you will have brighter markers that last longer. Go ahead and rinse all of your brushes. So you can take them out of the cup, rinse them really good. I'm drying them off, and then I'm just sticking them. I have a flower pot here, and that's what I'm putting my supplies in. I have my pencil, my eraser, my pencil sharpener, and then for the watercolor paints. Now this is still wet, so I'm gonna leave this out and open and just set it aside until that dries all the way. For my watercolors, it's a good idea on your watercolors to grab that paper towel you were using. You don't need to get a new one unless yours is really gross. You need to just wipe up. You can dab it, those little bits. You can also rinse it in the sink. You can just run water right over it. I'm not gonna do that because it does make your paints not last nearly as long. And then I'm just gonna shut the lid. I wanna leave this laying flat until that water completely soaks in. And then I can throw away my paper towels, rinse my cup, and just clean up my area. So thanks for being here for art today. Miss you guys.